I never thought I'd become the most hated man in Oak Ridge County, but here I am watching Patricia Wilson, the president of Suncrest Estates HOA, standing at my door with her perfect blonde hair and designer clothes, begging me to turn the water back on. Her face is turning redder by the second in the scorching summer heat. I take a slow sip of my iced tea and smile. Beautiful day, isn't it, Patricia? She looks like she might explode. 300 families don't have water in the middle of July, Michael. This isn't a game. Behind her expensive sunglasses, I can see the desperation in her eyes. It almost makes me feel bad. Almost. But before I tell you how we got here, let me explain how this all started. It wasn't supposed to be this way. I never planned to be a farmer. 6 months ago, I was living in a cramped apartment in Chicago, working 60 hours a week as a software engineer. My life was meetings, deadlines, and takeout dinners eaten while staring at code on my laptop. Then came the call that changed everything. "Michael, it's about Dad," my sister said, her voice breaking. "He's gone. Heart attack." The funeral was a blur. Dad had been a constant in our small farming community his entire life. Everyone knew Jack Mitchell, the man who worked the same 50 acres his father and grandfather had farmed before him. As his only son, I inherited the farm, a responsibility I wasn't sure I wanted. "You should sell," my boss suggested when I requested extended leave. "Farming is a dying business anyway." Maybe he was right. I hadn't planned to stay. I'd take a month to sort things out, then put the farm on the market. That was the plan anyway. The trouble started my second week back. I was clearing out Dad's old work shed when a pristine white SUV pulled into our gravel driveway. A tall woman with perfect hair and clothes that probably cost more than my monthly rent stepped out, looking at our farmhouse with obvious distaste. "Can I help you?" I asked, wiping my dusty hands on my jeans. She offered a practiced smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You must be Jack's son. I'm Patricia Wilson, president of the Suncrest Estates Homeowners Association." She extended a manicured hand. "I was so sorry to hear about your father." Suncrest Estates was the luxury housing development that had sprung up about half a mile down the road 5 years ago. 300 cookie-cutter mansions with perfect lawns, built for wealthy city people who wanted to play at country living without the actual country part. "Thank you," I replied simply. Patricia got straight to the point. "I wanted to personally welcome you and discuss a wonderful opportunity. Our development has been interested in acquiring this property for some time. We'd like to expand our recreational facilities. A golf course, perhaps." Dad never mentioned anything about selling. Her smile tightened. "Your father was traditional in his views. But times change, and this land would serve the community better as part of our development. We're prepared to make a very generous offer." The number she named was decent but nowhere near what the land was worth, especially with water rights in our drought-prone region. "I appreciate your interest, but I'm not ready to make any decisions yet." Patricia's smile vanished. "I understand, but don't take too long. Property values are a concern. Your farm's rustic appearance impacts our residents' home values. We've had complaints." The threat was thinly veiled. As she drove away, I noticed a man in a pickup truck parked at the end of our driveway, watching. He quickly pulled away when he saw me looking. That evening, I called my old college friend, Emma Rodriguez, now a real estate attorney in the county seat. "Suncrest has been after your dad's land for years," Emma explained over coffee the next day. "Your farm sits on the headwaters of Willow Creek. That's valuable in this part of Texas, especially with the drought conditions we've been having. They can't force me to sell, right?" "No, but they've been known to make life difficult for holdouts. Document everything, Michael. And check your property lines regularly." I didn't understand the warning until a week later. I was checking the fences on the south side of the property when I noticed freshly disturbed earth. Following the strange line of disrupted soil, I discovered something that made my blood boil. A pipeline had been installed, running from our creek straight towards Suncrest Estates. This wasn't just trespassing, they were stealing our water. I immediately called Emma, who arrived with a county surveyor. The evidence was clear. The pipeline was a good 30 feet inside our property line. The surveyor confirmed it wasn't permitted or registered with the county water authority. "This is illegal on multiple levels," Emma said, photographing the pipeline. "Trespassing, unauthorized construction, and water theft. They're probably using it to fill their decorative lake and water all those perfect lawns." I drove straight to the Suncrest Estates Community Center and demanded to see Patricia Wilson. After being kept waiting for nearly an hour, I was finally shown into her sleek office with its picture window overlooking their man-made lake. "Michael, have you reconsidered our offer?" she asked pleasantly. I placed the photos of the pipeline on her glass desk. I want to know why there's an unauthorized pipeline running through my property. Patricia barely glanced at the photos. There must be some misunderstanding. We have all the proper easements for our water infrastructure. No, you don't. I have the survey right here showing it's 30 feet inside my property line. Her expression hardened. These matters are complicated. Suncrest has certain historical water access rights that predate your ownership. Show me the documentation. Our legal team handles those details. I suggest you direct your concerns to them. She slid a business card across the desk. Though I should mention, legal battles can be expensive and time-consuming. Are you prepared for that kind of fight, Michael? As I left, a Suncrest resident approached me in the parking lot. Be careful, he warned, looking around nervously. They've been charging us extra HOA fees for a water system upgrade for the past year. $300 every quarter per household. That's over $300,000, and no one will tell us exactly where the money's going. The next day, Emma's investigation confirmed there was no record of any easements or agreements for the pipeline. Completely illegal. But when we tried to file a formal complaint, we hit a wall. The county inspector, Thomas Green, seemed to find every reason to delay. The sheriff, an old fishing buddy of Patricia's husband, was too busy to investigate trespassing claims. They have connections, Emma warned. This is how they operate. That night, as I explained the situation to Mrs. Davis, our elderly neighbor who'd known Dad for decades, she sighed heavily. Your father suspected they were taking water last summer during the drought. The creek level was much lower than it should have been. He was planning to investigate before his heart gave out. A surge of anger rose in me. Had the stress of dealing with Suncrest contributed to Dad's heart attack? The next morning, I installed security cameras disguised as birdhouses along our property line. 3 days later they captured Gold, Suncrest facilities manager Robert Taylor, and 2 workers crossing onto our property at dawn, expanding the connection point at the creek. We need to increase capacity by 30%, Taylor said on camera, phone to his ear. Yes, Ms. Wilson, we're handling it now. Direct evidence of Patricia's involvement. Emma filed for an injunction, but legal wheels turned slowly in rural Texas. Meanwhile, Patricia moved to Plan B. Strange rumors began spreading through the community, that I was planning to sell to a waste processing company, that I was starting a hog farm, that I was going to dam the creek completely. Then came official harassment. Thomas Green showed up unannounced, citing anonymous complaints about code violations. He found nothing, of course, but the message was clear. I received a certified letter inviting me to address the Suncrest HOA board regarding environmental impacts from the Mitchell property. It was a trap designed to put me on the defensive in hostile territory. I decided to attend anyway with Emma by my side and a recording device in my pocket. The meeting went exactly as expected. Patricia had packed the room with agitated homeowners and presented carefully selected photos that made our farm look rundown and hazardous. As you can see, she declared to the crowd, the current condition presents potential fire hazards, pest breeding grounds, and decreases our community's property values. Then she turned to me with fake concern. Perhaps, Michael, you could explain your plans to address these issues? I stood, feeling dozens of suspicious eyes on me. Thank you for your concern. I'd be happy to discuss legitimate community issues. However, I'm more interested in addressing the illegal pipeline your HOA has installed on my property, the water you're taking without permission, and the $300 per quarter you're charging residents for what you're actually stealing. The room went dead silent. Patricia's smile froze, and the board's attorney quickly tried to change the subject. But the damage was done. Homeowners began exchanging glances, whispering about the special assessments they'd been paying. The meeting dissolved into chaos as residents demanded answers about the water fees. Emma and I slipped out during the confusion. You just declared war, Emma said as we drove away. She was right. The next morning our tractor had been vandalized. Our mailbox was smashed. By evening someone had spray-painted "Sell the Farm City Boy" on our barn in bright red letters. I called Sheriff Mills, who took a report but seemed uninterested in pursuing it. Can't go accusing Suncrest folks without solid evidence, he said, not quite meeting my eyes. Later, the same resident who had warned me in the parking lot called from a blocked number. Mills gets generous donations from the Suncrest Community Fund. Patricia makes sure he knows who butters his bread. My sister, Kate, flew in from Denver where she worked as an investigative journalist. You've been playing defense, Michael. Time to go on offense. Kate began digging into Patricia's history and Suncrest's financial records. What she found was illuminating. Before becoming HOA president, Patricia had been involved in 2 other developments that had faced water access issues. In both cases, adjacent properties had mysteriously ended up selling below market value after experiencing vandalism and harassment. The smoking gun came when Kate discovered a supposed water access agreement between Suncrest and our farm, dated 2 years earlier and bearing what appeared to be Dad's signature. "This is forged," I said immediately. "Dad would never have agreed to this." Emma confirmed the document was suspicious. The signature didn't match Dad's on other legal papers. Our investigation took an unexpected turn when Kate found an announcement in the County Water Management Bulletin. The headwaters of our creek, the source spring located on public land that fed water onto our property, was being prepared for auction by the Water District in 30 days. "Whoever owns the source controls the flow," Emma explained. "If Suncrest buys those rights, they could legitimately cut off your access entirely or force you to pay them for water." Kate leaned forward, eyes gleaming. "So let's buy it first." The plan was risky. Dad had left some savings, but purchasing water rights would take a significant chunk. Still, it felt right, like something Dad would have done. "Do it," I decided. Buying the water rights required careful maneuvering. If Patricia got wind of our plan, she would undoubtedly try to outbid us. Emma introduced me to James Wilson, chairman of the local water management board, who explained how the bidding process worked. We created an LLC registered to Emma's office address to mask my involvement and submitted our bid for the headwaters. The asking price wasn't small, $60,000 for a tiny parcel of land most people wouldn't look twice at. But considering it controlled water access to a development with hundreds of million-dollar homes, it was a bargain. The transaction went through without a hitch. We were the only bidders, suggesting Patricia hadn't realized the significance of the sale notice. I was now the proud owner of a rocky hillside spring that represented a critical chess move in our battle. According to James, news of the sale had reached Suncrest, causing quite a stir when they realized someone had acquired the headwaters, though they didn't yet know who. Patricia stormed into my office demanding to know who bought it, he told me with amusement. Said it was rightfully part of their water management plan. I told her public records would be updated in due course. Patricia's reaction was swift and vicious. Mrs. Davis was confronted at the grocery store by Suncrest residents who'd been fed misinformation. They called her a greedy old woman for supporting me. Then Robert Taylor and workers were caught on our security cameras attempting to extend the pipeline further onto our property in broad daylight. When I confronted them, Taylor became threatening. "You don't know who you're messing with, computer boy," he growled. "Ms. Wilson has friends in high places. You'll regret making enemies here." The final straw came when Patricia called an emergency HOA meeting and formally declared me a hostile element threatening community welfare. The minutes, leaked to us by our parking lot informant, revealed she had instituted a community defense fund, requiring another special assessment of $500 per household to protect Suncrest's water security. We also received notice that Suncrest was initiating eminent domain proceedings against our property for the pipeline corridor, claiming essential public utility access as justification. "They can't actually do this," Emma reassured me. "HOAs don't have eminent domain authority. This is a scare tactic." Our cameras captured Robert Taylor and a crew cutting through our fence and damaging part of the property to expand the pipeline. When I confronted them, Sheriff Mills was already there, apparently called by Patricia, claiming it was a civil dispute he couldn't intervene in. It was time to use our nuclear option. The installation of the control valve at the headwaters took 2 days of careful work. I hired a legitimate water systems engineer who installed a remotely controllable valve that could regulate or completely shut off the flow from the spring into the creek bed. Everything was done legally, permits filed for water flow management infrastructure, proper environmental precautions taken, and official notice provided to the County Water Authority about essential maintenance and monitoring of private water resources. Following Emma's guidance, I sent a formal letter to the Suncrest HOA board detailing the illegal pipeline, documentation of water theft, and our ownership of the headwaters. The letter requested immediate removal of all unauthorized infrastructure and proposed a meeting to discuss a potential legitimate water access agreement at market rates. I gave them 72 hours to respond before we would pursue all available remedies. Patricia's response came in the form of a cease and desist letter from Suncrest's attorney, claiming we were interfering with established community water access and threatening countersuits. The 72-hour deadline passed without any substantive response. It was time. On a blistering Tuesday morning in mid-July, when temperatures were forecast to hit 103 degrees, I pressed the button on the remote control that activated the valve. The effect wasn't immediate. Suncrest had some reserves. But by mid-afternoon the impact was becoming evident. The decorative fountains in the community entrance shut down first. By evening, sprinkler systems failed, leaving meticulously manicured lawns vulnerable to the scorching heat. And by the following morning, water pressure in homes had dropped dramatically, with some houses losing water entirely. The community was in chaos. Local news vans began appearing outside Suncrest's gates. By noon on the second day, Patricia gave a passionate interview portraying their community as victims of water terrorism, by a vindictive neighbor refusing to accept progress. Families are suffering, she declared dramatically. Children can't bathe. Elderly residents are at risk in this heat. All because one man wants to strong-arm our community. Her performance was compelling, and the initial coverage was largely sympathetic to Suncrest. Kate's counteroffensive launched that same evening. She released her meticulously prepared video documentation to selected media outlets, complete with time-stamped footage of the illegal pipeline installation, expert testimonials about water rights and copies of the forged documents. This isn't about one man controlling water, she told reporters. This is about a corrupt HOA stealing resources, defrauding homeowners and destroying private property, then playing victim when caught. The narrative began to shift as more balanced coverage emerged. Day 3 brought matters to a head when an angry crowd of Suncrest residents appeared at our front gate, led by Patricia herself. "Turn on our water, Mitchell," she shouted through a bullhorn. "You can't hold an entire community hostage." Behind her, the crowd was divided, some angry, others uncomfortable, clearly having seen the emerging news coverage questioning their HOA's actions. Sheriff Mills arrived, this time concerned about maintaining order. I met them at the gate, Kate recording everything from our porch. "This is private property," I stated calmly. "You're trespassing and this constitutes harassment." Patricia stepped forward, her face flushed. "You're destroying our community. People will remember who took their water during a heat wave." I maintained my composure, aware of the cameras. "I'm simply managing water resources on land I legally own, Ms. Wilson. The same water your HOA has been stealing through an illegal pipeline you installed without permission. Have you told your neighbors they've been paying special assessments for stolen water? Or about the forged document with my dead father's signature you created?" A murmur ran through the crowd as neighbors exchanged glances. Our parking lot informant stepped forward. "Is that true, Patricia? Have we been paying for stolen water?" Others joined in with questions about the special assessments. The confrontation had backfired spectacularly. Instead of uniting the community against me, it had turned attention to Patricia's actions. Sheriff Mills, reading the shifting mood, finally stepped up. "All right, folks. This is a civil matter that needs to be addressed properly through legal channels. Everyone disperse before this becomes a public disturbance." As the crowd broke up, Mills approached me privately. "The mayor's office called. They want to meet with both parties tomorrow to resolve this situation. 9 a.m. at City Hall." That evening, Suncrest's vice president called me unexpectedly. "Mitchell, this has gone far enough. You've made your point." His voice lacked its usual confidence. "Turn the water back on as a show of good faith, and we can negotiate a reasonable settlement." I wasn't buying it. The time for reasonable negotiations was before you installed an illegal pipeline, forged documents, and vandalized my property. "I'll see you at City Hall tomorrow." As a gesture of minimal goodwill, I remotely opened the valve to allow 4 hours of water flow overnight. Enough for residents to fill bathtubs and containers. It wasn't generosity, it was strategy. I wanted to demonstrate clearly that I controlled the situation completely. City Hall was packed the next morning. Mayor Thompson, a silver-haired political veteran, had arranged for us to meet in the council chambers, a formal setting that underscored the seriousness of the situation. The meeting was tense, with Patricia and her team presenting the forged water access agreement and claiming I was interrupting essential services. Emma methodically dismantled their arguments, presenting our evidence of trespassing, water theft, and harassment. Just as it seemed we were at an impasse, the chamber doors opened and several Suncrest residents entered, led by our parking lot informant. "I apologize for interrupting, Mayor, but as Suncrest residents, we believe we have a right to be represented in these discussions," he said. "We've collected signatures from over 100 households demanding financial transparency from our HOA board regarding the water access fees we've been paying." The room erupted into chaos as Patricia leapt to her feet, accusing the residents of undermining community unity during a crisis. During a brief recess, our informant slipped me a bombshell: financial records showing Patricia had diverted over $150,000 from the HOA's Water Infrastructure Fund over 2 years, using it for personal home renovations and luxury vacations. When the meeting reconvened, Emma calmly presented the new evidence, requesting that the police department open an investigation into potential fraud and forgery. Patricia's composure finally cracked completely. This is absurd. A desperate smear campaign. Mayor Thompson instructed his staff to contact the district attorney's office immediately. Given these serious allegations, I believe we need to adjust our approach to this negotiation, he turned to me. Mr. Mitchell, regardless of these new developments, we still have a community facing a water crisis. What terms would you accept for restoring full water access in the immediate term? I had thought carefully about this moment. 3 conditions, Mayor. First, immediate removal of all unauthorized infrastructure from my property, supervised by county officials. Second, a proper water access agreement negotiated in good faith with fair market compensation for both past usage and future access. Third, a public apology for the harassment and vandalism my family's property has endured. The mayor looked to Suncrest's attorney, who had been whispering with the vice president. We can agree to those terms in principle, pending review of specific details, the vice president finally said, distancing himself from Patricia. As the meeting concluded with a tentative agreement, Patricia suddenly bolted to her feet. This isn't over, Mitchell, she hissed, all pretense abandoned. You think you've won, but I still have connections you couldn't imagine. Enjoy your victory while it lasts. She stormed out, leaving her team to awkwardly apologize for her emotional response. True to my word, I partially reopened the valve that evening, providing water 6 hours per day to Suncrest while the formal agreement was being drafted. The community quickly organized an emergency HOA meeting where our informant presented the evidence of financial mismanagement to stunned residents. By overwhelming vote, Patricia and several board members were removed, pending investigation. The fragile peace lasted exactly 8 days. Suncrest's new interim board was working constructively with our team to draft a proper water access agreement. The unauthorized pipeline had been dismantled, and plans were underway for a legal system. Most residents adjusted to the temporary water schedule, understanding it was a step toward a lasting fix. Then a certified letter came. The State Environmental Protection Division was investigating possible contamination in the creek on my land, citing industrial chemicals. All water was ordered shut off pending review. The complaint was based on samples by Thomas Green, the same inspector who had targeted us under Patricia's orders. My phone blew up with calls from residents, media, and the mayor, all demanding answers about contaminated water. This is her last move, Emma said in our emergency meeting. She wants to make it look like you knowingly poisoned the water. We hired a private testing firm to collect samples, especially from the headwaters. We also asked for rapid testing from the state's main lab. Mayor Thompson sent a city engineer to observe. Results came in 48 hours. Our tests showed clean water at the source and most of the property, except one section right where the creek crossed into Suncrest, showing traces of industrial chemicals. Someone planted that, Kate said after consulting experts. These are industrial solvents, not runoff. They had to be deliberately added. The evidence was strong enough for Sheriff Mills to act. With approval from the county prosecutor, he got warrants to search Green's office and Patricia's home. What they found was shocking. Green's office had forged reports and a check from Patricia. Her garage contained the exact chemicals used, plus receipts dated 3 days before the contamination was reported. Sheriff Mills arrested Patricia as she tried to leave town with a suitcase full of cash. The charges were extensive: forgery, fraud, embezzlement, environmental crimes, conspiracy. While the legal system moved ahead, the community began rebuilding. The new board finalized a fair water access deal, recognized our rights, and added monitoring and fair payment. Most importantly, Patricia's culture of fear was gone. We received a significant settlement for years of unauthorized water use and damage. Instead of keeping it all, I used part of it to modernize the farm's irrigation and create a sustainable model that helped both sides. In the years since, a surprising partnership has formed. Some Suncrest residents, ashamed of past silence, stepped up to help. Our informant, now the new HOA president, leads volunteer days to help restore damaged areas of our farm. The creek flows freely now, regulated and respected, supplying water to both sides through legal means. On a perfect fall evening, I sat by the creek with Emma, Mrs. Davis, and former enemies now turned friends, watching the sunset paint the water golden. Sometimes you have to dam the water to make people see its real value, I said, raising my beer in a toast. I could have returned to Chicago, back to my software job and city life. But spreadsheets don't appeal anymore. This land, with its challenges and beauty, is home again. Dad always said the farm would be here when I was ready. He just didn't mention it would take a water war, a corrupt HOA, and a community uprising to make me realize it. As I watched the sunset glint off the creek, ours now, shared and protected, I knew he'd appreciate the irony. Some things matter more than we first believe, and some battles are worth fighting.